Mr. Speaker, I have a motion to recommit at the desk.
Is the gentleman opposed to the bill?
Mr. Speaker, I am opposed to the bill in its current form.
The gentleman qualifies. The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Comer of Kentucky moves to recommit the bill H.R. 8015 to the Committee on Appropriations with instructions to report the same back to the House forthwith with the following amendment. Add after Section 2C the following. D. Penalties for Postal Service employee federal election tampering. 1. In general, an employee of the United States.
It's to dispense with the reading.
Is there objection? Hearing none.
Objection is heard.
An objection is heard. Hearing none. The reading is dismissed. Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes in support of his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues on both sides of the aisle have shown immense passion today for both their constituents and the integrity of this upcoming national election. There's no doubt that voting by mail will be more relied upon than it has been in previous elections. The Postal Service will be a crucial link in the chain of custody between voters and state or local election boards. For the Americans who choose to cast their vote via mail, they need to be sure that their ballot, their voice, will be safe. We therefore need the proper measures in place to ensure that integrity is maintained. In addition, if we are going to give the Postal Service funding, I think my colleagues on both sides of the aisle need assurances that it will be spent where Americans need it most. The prioritization of medical deliveries and ballots for this election. My motion contains reasonable additions to H.R. 8015 that ensure that this funding gets to where it needs to go. These provisions ensure that funds must only be spent on operating expenses to keep our postal workers paid and to keep them safe with personal protective equipment. These provisions will also ensure that a portion of these funds go to prioritizing pharmaceutical deliveries to get life-saving medicines to Americans quicker. Lastly, these provisions ensure that these funds are used to prioritize ballots as well as establish penalties for postal employees who tamper or interfere with election mail. For instance, any postal employee will face penalties if they knowingly and willfully slow down the processing of mail or uses their official authority to interfere with the election of a federal candidate. This upcoming election will put millions, possibly hundreds of millions of votes in the literal hands of Postal Service workers, who we must trust to deliver ballots safely and on time. The election will put our collective faith in our Postal Service like we've never seen before. And those who break the trust of Americans need to face the consequences. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this motion to recommit.